Sup guys, Sanderson 977 here today to do JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders episode 16 review. In this JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime episode, as we've seen, we see the introduction of another stand user, and his name is Dan, and possibly also arguably the most troublesome of the stand users that we've seen get introduced so far, because as we all know, based on Dan's own stand ability, Dan's stand is a type of stand where he shrinks his stand to enter someone's body, and upon that stand entering that person's body, any damage that is inflicted to Dan gets multiplied a whole bunch to the opponent, in which his stand entered that person's body. So, as was stated by him, because the damage against him gets multiplied by that much, there is a possibility that upon inflicting, the slightest of injuries to his body, that person could die from the sheer damage or pain felt. Who knows? But according to him, that's what he says. I'm not sure if someone can actually die from pain. I know that a person can experience shock from pain. Shock is where their body starts to convulse, and their body gets into a panic mode. And I know that there are defense mechanisms in the human body that basically numbs that area because the pain would be too intense for it to feel. So the body itself has countermeasures. So maybe that will be how they defeat Dan, who knows. But currently his stand is one of the more troublesome stand. Dan and his stand is one of the more troublesome stand users that we've seen thus far. And surprisingly, he got rid of Enyaba. And this is so ironic that even up until Enyaba's own death, she was swearing for Lord Dio. She was swearing that Dio would never betray her, that Dio would never do something like this, when apparently it is the case, because he's the one who sent Dan to get rid of her. So, this episode, Enyaba, even though they wanted to keep her alive so that they could question her about Dio, even right up to the very last moment when Enyaba almost had her last breath, when Joseph Joestar was asking her about Dio's powers, she said she would never tell her. So she was loyal to Dio till the end. But that loyalty wasn't forthright on his side. He didn't show that amount of loyalty apparently. But this stand user, Dan and his stand, which is called the Love, this is called Insect King Beast or whatever. Now, in my last week JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime episode review, which is episode 15 review, I mentioned that for all of these stand users that we've seen thus far, the common theme between them, even though they may have some really hacks abilities or have some hack stands, stands with insane abilities and all that, I've always mentioned that the determining factor for all of them is the fact that all of them has a link or a trace to the stand user. And if someone knows to exploit that link between the stand and the stand user, then that's potentially a weakness, and a person can use that to defeat that stand user. Because for every stand user that we've seen thus far, every stand user, even among those guys that had the perfect stand or stand with no weaknesses, or people like Enyaba, who has, as was stated by a whole horse, amazing stand and such an incredible stand ability and all of this extravagant stuff, all of them share that link between the stand and the stand user. Now, how this relates to defeating Dan, I have no idea. Right? I'm not particular about the specifics about how they could use that to defeat Dan. But if they wish to defeat this guy, right? If they wish to get rid of him, considering the fact that he has the stand out there, right? Even though the current way in which it is shown that they may defeat him would be when Kakouin and Polnareff shrunk their stands, which is something that we've never seen them do before. We've never seen stands operating this way. Probably Dan and his stand is probably naturally at that small size, but it's never occurred to us, or it's never been revealed thus far, that a stand can be shrunk to enter a person's body, etc. So Hierophant Green and Silver Chariot, which is the stands of Polnareff and Kakyoin, are entering Joseph Joestar's body to try to reach Love, which is Dan's stand, so that he can fight it and kill it and defeat it. But that seems to be the direct way with how they are going to defeat this guy and beat him eventually. And so that seems to be the way, but there may be a situation or an, that seems to be the way that they will defeat him. But who knows, maybe the next episode it could be a completely new avenue that we've looked past, or we weren't aware of, which they do use to defeat this guy. Because it seems kind of cliche and more commonsensical and more logical for them to approach it with that way. But who knows? I'm guessing that when they do eventually in fact reach Love, that they call tiny insect looking stand in Joseph Joestar's body, defeating it will not be as easy as they thought. So defeating him would probably have to be another situation. But based on my own theory about stand users and their weaknesses, we'll see how it plays out in relation to Dan and how they will end up defeating him, if they do end up defeating him. How they end up defeating him, and then I will further give my thoughts about that. But overall, I thought this was a good episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And oh yes, Jotarou had to be held back against beating the crap out of this guy. And I mean, we all know that Jotarou is a hardcore dude. He doesn't mess around. He's not the type of guy to take insults, to be belittled, those type of stuff. In fact, he even calls his own mother a bitch. And all females, he generally gives them a kind of standoffish attitude. So for him to be treated this way, it must really be pushing his buttons, and we can see that he's trying his best not to retaliate and just punch this dude in the face and knock him out. But upon doing so, he could kill his grandfather. So he's doing his best to not hurt this dude. So we see Jotarou being pushed to his limits in another unique aspect, and that is in terms of his mental resilience, right? How resilient are you mentally to sticking by what you say, for something which in Jotarou's case would be taking insults and just overlooking things, at least temporary for the time being, until they can get the situation done with. But overall, I thought it was a good episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Liked it. So that's it. That's my review. Not a very long review, but hey, it is what it is. Remember to rate, comment, subscribe. Sayonara.